The pound is more than an ounce. Let's bounce. Oh man, how the heck are you? I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer. Who else would I be, man? Tom, we never know what you're calling yourself these days. Anyway. Oh, mercy. Oh, there's Shadow. Shadow wants to get in action. There you are. Yep, everybody thinks you're pretty. Anyway, so here's what I did here, guys. If anybody cares. We don't care a lot, Tom. No, we don't care a lot. Anyway, so yeah, I bought this bottle, actually, believe it or not, about 2 years ago. Actually, I bought two of them. I bought one of them when it first came out because I was part of the tasting. It was a Macadoodle store pick for their J. Riegers. This is their Kansas City whiskey that's finished in Laird's Applejack barrels. So I was part of the tasting that picked this. It's a 100 proof version of it anyway. So I bought it when it first came out. About 2 months later, I bought a second bottle. And I just opened this one a few months ago when we had some family in from out of state. And I kind of tucked it away since then, but thought I'd make an old-fashioned with it. J. Rieger's 100 proof. This isn't their bourbon. This is their Kansas City whiskey. What's the difference? Why is this not a bourbon? Because the original recipe through Prohibition is that they would add a little bit of Oloroso to it, which obviously disqualified it from being a bourbon. And this Kansas City whiskey uses that Oloroso, whereas the bourbon does not. So, hence, it's a Kansas City whiskey, and it's not a bourbon. So I decided to make an old-fashioned with it, though. I had just a little bit of simple syrup left that I made about 3 weeks ago, I guess. It lasted me a little longer than I thought it would. Wow, that is good. So I've got 2 ounces of the bourbon. I've got a ½ ounce of simple syrup. It's the main reason that I can't order an old-fashioned out because I don't like them as sweet as most bartenders will make them. Anyway, yeah, get 2 ounces of the bourbon, ½ ounce of simple syrup, about a half dozen dashes of bitters. I also use a little more bitters than most of them, and an orange slice just for shits and giggles. If you want to add a cherry, add whatever garnish you like. I've read recipes for an old-fashioned that call for a cherry the same as a Manhattan. Some will call for an orange slice. Some will call for both. There isn't a wrong way to do it, man. It's a fucking garnish. Make it the way you want. I got some Ray Wiley Hubbard playing right now. Chick singer, badass rocket. I love this song. This guy is amazing. You may not know him by name, but I'm guaranteed you know a lot of the songs he's written anyway. And Joan Jett is a goddess. It's a very complex whiskey. Right now, I kept going back and forth because I was noticing some maple notes that I didn't quite remember from before. But it's finished in those Applejack barrels, which adds another layer, right? You get that little bit of something else. And it gets to turn that into an old-fashioned. It just works, man. And although I'm almost a purist, right? I mean, I do like most of my whiskey needs, occasionally on the rocks. But I'm not against putting a good whiskey in a classic cocktail, like an old-fashioned or a Manhattan, because quite frankly, your cocktail is only going to be as good as the whiskey you use. Now, if you're making a Nouveau cocktail that's going to contain your whiskey and 25 liqueurs, no, don't use good stuff. You might as well be using 10 high if you're going to throw that shit in there. But if you're making a classic cocktail where the whiskey really is going to be elevated, yeah, you want a good whiskey, at least for the first drink. Yeah, take it down. If you're serving it for your friends, yeah, give them the good whiskey the first drink, and then take it down. Have some Evan Williams on hand so you can, the second or third drink you can use the inexpensive bourbon, but make them a good one first, because then they're going to be convinced. Then they're going to start to get a little buzz, and then you can throw the cheap shit on them, and they'll never know the difference. Anyway, not that I've done that before. Anyway, Shake It Out, Carl Denson, man, I love this guy. I listen to my Spotify almost solely anymore. I don't listen to any commercial radio. But every once in a while, and because I like to pick out the songs that I like and make my own mixes. But I like to be my own DJ, right? But every once in a while, I'll listen to the mixes that Spotify puts together for me. And this is an artist I found on another mix. So I found Eric Lindell by watching a Nugs TV. So then I started searching Eric Lindell, started throwing me out other artists, and then I also found Billy Ayuso. So you got these guys that are a little bit R&B, a little bit of soul, a little bit of jazz, and it started giving me artists like Carl Denson, Trombone Shorty, etc. So oh, these guys are pretty good. But this song in particular, I really like. Most of his stuff is instrumental jazz, but every once in a while, man, he's got a tune like this that is just incredibly. It's just put together very well. I lost where I was going. Stay with me. It's alright if you're gonna. It's alright if you need to. It's alright, she'll be you. Anyways, I love this too, man. He's got a song, it's an instrumental called Chicken and Waffles, which I really like a lot as well. See, the only problem with using a whiskey like this to make an old fashioned is that it's just wow, it's just so incredibly good. Because I've got this incredibly nuanced whiskey. And a lot of folks sort of the misconception, if you put a good whiskey in a cocktail, you're going to lose those nuances. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to pour 100, like I said, if you're going to use 100 different ingredients, you are. But I mean, this cocktail has this whiskey, simple syrup, bitters, and the garnish. I mean, that's it. So, yeah. Those other ingredients really lift that whiskey up. You're going to still feel all those nuances, man. And at 100 proof, man, you just don't feel it here. It's just so perfect. I wasn't all that familiar with Laird's Applejack until I bought this whiskey. But I was so enamored by this whiskey that I felt like I needed to explore. So I found a bottle on sale of their a 10th generation 5-year-old apple brandy. And that stuff was just so, it was just amazing, man. Oh, that's pretty good. So much so that I would do versions of a Manhattan where I would replace the vermouth and add that brandy in there. And oh man, that drink was just amazing. And also a while back I made an au poivre sauce. And I didn't have a cognac. So in place I used that 5-year-old apple brandy, and it just made a beautiful au poivre. Because then you had that hint of apple in there, right? Just took it to a whole other place. I thought, man, Tom, you're a genius. Tom, that's brilliant. How'd you think of that? Well, I thought of that because that's what I had on hand. And sometimes that's how things work. You work with what you got, man. I'm a firm believer in working with what you have. A lot of people think that recipes, whether it's food or cocktails, are written in stone, and you have to do it exactly that way. No, you don't. They're not written in stone. They weren't handed down from God to Moses. You can make them any way you want. Work with the ingredients you have. I'm a firm believer in that. Flame on the iguanas on Whiskey Whisper Radio. Drums is old. What's his face? See, my wife, who's not usually a fan of my music, she really likes this song. She's over here nodding her head. She usually doesn't do that. 1, 2, 3, flame on. But it is one of those tunes. It's got that kind of old school lounge feel. Flame on, flame on. Party boys and party girls, but get your flame on. Oh, it's a great tune anyway. I love the Iguanas. Great band. Anyways, bring it back, Tom. Bring it back for us, Tom. We were ready to rock again. Whereas I will always serve, always, no exception, I will always serve a Manhattan straight up, which means chilled with no ice in the glass. I kind of go back and forth on old fashioned. If you have an old fashioned out, most places will serve it on the rocks. And I kind of go back and forth. I've made it straight up, but I don't mind having the one big cube. I just don't like a lot of little cubes in my glass. So there you go. And I'm pretty particular about my ice. I do use purified water. Boys and party girls, get the flame. Oh. Man, that is just delicious. Oh, yeah. But what the orange does, though, the orange does help with the aromatics as well. So, you know, there's an argument for always having a little bit of an orange slice in there. I don't mind a cherry in there, but I've noticed younger folks, well, you know, folks 20 years younger than I'll say, don't really think a cherry belongs in old-fashioned, and it's mostly because they've never had it that way. But anyway, you gotta pay for it later. But there are a lot of classic recipes that just list the cherry as an orange. So anyway, again, it's really up to you. It's your cocktail. Make it any way you want to. Don't let anybody tell you you're wrong. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, beloved whiskey drinker. Purveyor of wisdom all around, good guy. Cheers.